Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center Webinar Wednesday. Good afternoon. I'm the SBDC Director, Kelly Bearden, and I am going to be your host today and moderate today's webinar, which is number 253. 253 of our webinar series going back in time. It's great to be back. We've had a short hiatus, a short vacation, if you want to call it that. Short period of time where we've been away, a little 3-4 week period. Little kind of interesting, this little thing called COVID came into my life and kind of disrupted our 140 consecutive weeks of doing a live webinar Wednesday, but we are back. We are reloaded, we are healthy, and we are ready to go. We got a great topic today. We have Melissa Forziat talking about marketing and some really great information that's coming up for you later today. So yes, it is a historic day in the United States many years ago. What is it now? Up to about, oh gosh, it must be Pearl Harbor being attacked. I should have done my math beforehand, but it's got to be about 79 years is my guess today. So December 7th. And what we're going to do is start a new webinar streak today. We're back at it, 140. Let's see where we can go now. With us today, a preview of today's webinar is going to focus very heavily with Melissa Forziat. Talked a little bit about her. We'll introduce her and have her out here soon. Talk a little bit about the economic news that as a small business owner, you need to know or should know in order to try to guide your business through the economic jungle that is out there. We'll have a little bit of news affecting your small business, and we'll update some of the programs that are still going on with the California Dream Act finally coming to an end for 2022, and the micro grant program still going. You still have 17 shopping days. Let me know when there's like one shopping day. But we have 17 shopping days until Christmas, and as always, we'll have your questions at the conclusion of today's webinar. But first, let's have a little bit of a poll here. Just a little simple question to kind of get the show going back on the marketing front. And the question today is going to be, what marketing area would you like to target for improvement in 2023? So would that be email marketing? Would it be e-commerce? Would it be social media? Would it be networking or digital advertising? You can select more than one item. So I'm not going to hold you to only one of those, but what are the areas that you would like to personally improve your business in 2023? So please select between the following of email marketing that can include newsletters and other notices to your customers, e-commerce, being able to do more transactions and more of your business on the internet, social media, I think we pretty much all know what that is, various platforms, and we have not broken it down by platforms, networking, the great networking aspect is coming back, and we'll be talking a little bit about that more today and a lot about that next week. So networking is coming back, and digital advertising, those sources online where you can advertise. So we do have about 70% of you participating. Thank you so much for that. What we're going to do is we're going to end the poll and share the results with you. And there you go. Your winners are digital advertising and networking, 58%. Also, social media, 50% of you, and 33% e-commerce, and last, certainly not least, email marketing. So thank you. And next week's guest, Mr. Bob Meadows, is going to be very happy to hear this, since we're going to be talking about networking in 2023. After all this pandemic and all these changes that have happened, networking is coming back finally, and we're starting to see more of it, and how can you benefit? So stay tuned next week. Thank you for your participation. Appreciate that, and sharing with your thoughts in our particular poll. Okay, so moving right along, let's go to the economic corner. Where our economic corner sits here on Webinar Wednesday, and that's where the economy intersects with small business. So on that corner, we had some really enlightening news from the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell. It was about 5-6 days ago, where he came out and said a lot of factors that are going to be happening with the economy as they continue to raise rates to bring inflation to 2%. So why is that important for small businesses to know? Well, raising rates and how rates are going to continue to raise is a factor of bringing down inflation. So while we still have job growth in the economy and we still have positive signs that consumers are continuing to spend, which is all good, we're having not maybe as many layoffs as we had hoped that a recession might bring. The Fed is going to continue to raise rates in order to bring down inflation. So those are the things to be watching. And really, as I like to say, the economy, the general economy, the national or even global economy is the one thing in your business that's very hard for you to control. All you can do is kind of understand it and make your choices and make your decisions moving forward based on the best information you're going to have. And you're going to have that with Economic Corner here. So also unknown is what the rate is going to be sufficient to curb inflation. So whereas we've been seeing regular interest rate increases, it is under the impression, at least that was what was left by Jerome Powell last week, was that rate increases are going to be smaller, but they're going to probably be a little longer than thought in September. So they think now rates need to go higher than they did when they had their last over the market committee hearing, where they get together quarterly in September, and that's going to continue. And really the sectors that really he said have a long way to go are going to be housing and labor. So when you're dealing with inflation, you're dealing with a very complex issue to where, you have a lot of prices increasing, and then your employees, those of us that are employees in the workplace, are looking to try to get back to where we were with the rising prices. And really, it's the housing sector that is starting to slow down and is giving some potential relief for inflation. But it's those labor markets that are going to still be out there, as we have seen with some of the things that are happening. For example, with the Congress intervening in the rail strike. So those are some of the things happening on the economic corner. So Capital Quarter, and this is our capital access page for small business on what's going on there. SBA rates. SBA rates are for the guaranteed program. The SBA 7A program are nearing 10%. Now, for old timers like myself, 10%, kind of seen that for a long period of time. Earlier in my career. So 10%, but a lot of people have not really seen or experienced high rates at all. And it's really been a decade or two since we've really seen rates that are starting to approach these rates. And that's by design, is to get these rates up and is to stall some of the projects that are going on, not only very small business projects, but also your larger projects that are continuing to bring heat and inflation to the economy. So in Capital Corner, that interest rate of 10% is going to be less for fixed assets. If you're acquiring land, building, or a substantial amount of equipment, the SBA 504 loan is going to be lower than that. But for your standard bellwether SBA loan, it is 10%. So what are we still seeing out there as far as accessing capital? We're still seeing more debt that's coming available online, and we're also starting to see market rate programs. So when you see the market rate programs, you're seeing those that are fully flexed to reflect like 10%. And a lot of the lower rate programs, and definitely the pandemic relief programs, appear to be gone, with maybe an exception that we'll talk about. So remember the SBA EIDL blanket security. It also could be a security blanket if you received an EIDL and still have that as the economy worsens. So it works as both a blanket security and a security blanket. If you have it and you still have those funds and you're starting to repay those, which are coming due, it still can be that security blanket. But by switching those two words around and going with blanket security is with your SBA EIDL loan, you have a blanket of the security or collateral or the assets in your particular business that you have pledged in signing that SBA economic injury disaster loan. So that comes into play when you are looking for more financing. And really, it's something that you need to call the call center if you're looking to move any particular assets or to actually look into another loan for your business as you move on and grow. And the reason is that SBA is subordinating. They are going into a reduced collateral position where they will go behind new funding, but they do want to see it and they want to be involved in the process. So keep that in mind in your capital. Some key news real quick is China is come out today and said that they're easing their COVID regulations. And that hopefully will bring some supply chain relief. We've got a lot of bottlenecks out there. And so by easing the COVID regulations and some of the things happening in China, it's been a tough 4 weeks. Webinar Wednesdays had a tough 4 weeks, but China, in dealing with a lot of the unrest and dissension and some of the things that were happening in some of the larger factories related to COVID, this could help actually the global economy and actually move things on. And lastly, the key thing you need to know is what is still as hot as in the pandemic era for pandemic relief is the employee retention credit. Now, of course, that could serve as a tax credit for you, or it can be a refundable tax credit to where you are actually paid. And this thing is still going on. People are still going back, filing amended payroll tax returns. I know we've talked about this most of the weeks this year, but it is still going on and remains the hottest pandemic area program that can still be accessed, even though it ended 13 months ago. Our Kern County micro grant program is still open. We are open and we foresee that going on until March of 2023. The application, if you need any assistance, we'd like to see people who actually go for this kind of get into the big picture and sign up for some of that free one-on-one consulting through the SBDC. You can call our office at 661-654-2856 for more information. We've had an ongoing issue with our phone system. So sometimes when you leave a phone message, we do not get that. So if we have not heard back from us, that is the reason. So do please give us a call back if you have not heard from us because of a glitch in our phone system that has been going on for longer than I would care to even discuss right now. So again, this program is open for those that have $50,000 and less in sales in 2019. You had to be in business in 2019. If you received the California Relief Grant Program through lindustry.com, forget it. You can't get this. And they do checks, so don't sign up. Sales, if they exceeded 50,000, you're not eligible. A couple other eligibility requirements, but it's still going on. And if you're a qualified micro business, that right there is the definition. Moving on to the California Dream Fund, we're hoping that this program actually extends into 23, but as of this moment, we are no longer, as of about 10 days ago or so, we are no longer putting people on our wait list, and maybe it was last week, and no longer actually moving forward in our center in Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. We've had 57 people participate. Had great participation down here, and that's accessing those $5,000 or $10,000 grants after you've received the consulting, the training that is mandatory, and also a business plan that is uploaded into the website. If you have gone through the class and you have attended the training sessions, the consulting of one-on-one with your consultant, and also completed a business plan and you're having issues getting it uploaded into the Lindustry platform, please give us a call. Let us know how we can help. Some of our other programs that you might find of interest, our webinars pop into our YouTube channel. And here are a few that we talked briefly about the COVID EIDL resources and some of the issues that are going on for those of you that received the COVID EIDL program. That would be one that where you signed a actual loan authorization and agreement. So that is back there. Cybersecurity, great presentation by our friends over at SLO. We have HR and CA law. So human resource and California law update, geared a little bit toward restaurants, but really pertinent to all businesses by our restaurant guru, Celeste Young Ramos. Also the Cal Savers mandatory program that started back in March 1st. If you have not, and you have 5 employees or more, and you have not started offering that to your employees, unfortunately, the compliance agents might be headed your way. So something you need to know, if you have 5 employees or more, that Cal Savers, as of April Fool's Day, was a mandatory item on your to-do list. Also, going back to October 7th, we had the Eastern Sierra Capital Summit. We had many speakers that day, about a dozen, maybe 8 or 10, that talked about many of the funding programs that were available. So today, it brings me great pleasure to bring back Melissa Forziat. Melissa is a well-known speaker, marketing expert, consultant, author, and has worked with small business owners, and she develops and executes, not only develops, but executes strategic marketing plans to a variety of different organizations and their trainers. She's worked in various situations and keynotes, workshops, breakout sessions, travels the world, bringing a really high message to corporate teams, small business owners. She's worked in many events, including the Rugby World Cup and the U.S. Olympic Committee, and also the Olympic Winter Games, through experience with the biggest brands in the world and do things. Melissa, it's great to have you on here. Thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here. A huge thank you to Kelly and Maureen for making it happen. And it's nice to be back for Webinar Wednesday. And I am just going to make sure that I'm sharing my screen. So if you could just give me one moment, I will switch over right here. Perfect. It's great to talk with all of you. Again, this is my second Webinar Wednesday that I've done, and it's great to see the consistency with which this has been brought to your region. Kelly gave a little bit of background on me. I'll give you just a tiny bit more before we get into the material, so you have a bit of context. So I did start out my career doing major international sport events like the Olympic Winter Games and Rugby World Cup. And obviously, events like that, organizations like that, they're some of the biggest organizations in the world. They have very recognizable brands, and they're operating at a scope that it's almost impossible to fathom. It's so huge. Now, I started my own business about 10 years ago, and I'm a micro business owner, like I imagine many of you are. So for me, I had to figure out, how do I take those great principles of marketing that I learned at the Olympic level and make them work for a business that looks like mine does now, or perhaps like yours does? You know, we have fewer resources to work with. And one of the really big things that we contend with is that it's kind of all in our own head, right? If you had a good day or a bad day, or if you have a lot to do or not a lot to do, you still have to make your pitch. You still have to get in front of people and talk with them. And I found, especially earlier in my business, that was something where there were a lot of different skills I needed to build in order to make that more powerful and in order to be more successful in getting sales across the line. So that's ultimately what we're covering today. We're really going to look at the psychology of marketing and sales. Now, I know that for some of you, this is the absolute busiest time of year. And for some of you, this is a time of year when things start slowing down in your business. There's usually kind of a big spread between what happens for businesses as we approach the holidays. And regardless of what's happening for your business right now, this material is really about setting you up and getting you to feel more confident and to find some things perhaps to improve, or some stylistic things that you can do in your marketing and your sales to help you get more comfortable and to help you get more sales across the line long term, perhaps next year, or maybe even this holiday season. So a couple quick housekeeping items before we move into the content. Now, I do encourage you to really focus in on this material right now. Use this as a time when you're thinking about your business as we're going through the content. So if you have something happening in the background that's distracting you, this is a good time to shut that down, if that's muting your phone or shutting off a messaging device. Now, I will have a lot of material here for you to think about, and I have the whole slide deck and some additional resources that will be available for those who aren't listening live. The link will be on the last slide. I believe it'll also be emailed out for those who are on live. I just put that into the chat. And so you can access all of the resources at that link. And in terms of questions, we'll take questions at the end, but there may be a few times that I pose questions to you as we go through, just to get a sense of how this material relates to your specific businesses. Okay, so now having said all of that, to root us in the purpose of today, psychology is honestly embedded into every aspect of marketing and sales. You may find it's embedded into other things that you're doing in your business as well, but we're really honing in on a few different psychological principles as we go through today that you can potentially apply to any of those areas that Kelly had done that poll about. For those of you who are looking to do digital ads and networking, but also the social media, the e-commerce, the email marketing, all of those things can be enhanced by using some of the principles that we talk about today, because you actually do have the power to position yourself. You can say whatever you want about your business, which can be really scary, but if you actually have a plan for how it's going to come out, it can be far more effective. And that's what we're looking at today. So we're going to very quickly start to look at 5 different principles. We'll talk about setting the voice of your brand. We'll talk about taking initiative with your message and really tapping into buyer motivation. We'll talk about power language. We'll talk about making strong calls to action from the standpoint of personality types, and that's actually my favorite part of this presentation. And then we'll look at proving your worth. How do you establish reputation for your audience? And I will say, you could probably spend a whole presentation talking about any one of these areas. We're really just going to lightly cover everything to introduce it to you. And the hope is that if you find something that you want to work on more, it opens your eyes to that and gives you a chance to start to explore it in greater depth. I wouldn't imagine that every single person will find every single topic relevant right now for their business, but everybody, I'm hoping, will find at least 1 or 2 things that you want to start working on or improving for your business in the months ahead. Okay, so that's the setup here. Let's jump in. Let's talk about marketing your business from the driver's seat. Okay, first things first, setting the voice of your brand. Now, this is important because how you talk to people ultimately has to be embedded within the overall brand that you're trying to represent. But here's the thing, brand is not about what you think it is. It's about what they think it is. They being your audience. Whatever you think you're putting out there, it's what they're receiving. That is the message that they're getting. So you have to really be cognizant of trying to put out the message you want to put out, but also figuring out what is landing, what are they getting on their end. It's important to think about it from their point of view. So the question becomes, what does your brand represent to others? When we try to take a position of power in our marketing and sales, we have a couple of tools that we can start to root ourselves in to make sure that we're aligning with what the audience knows about us and what we want them to know about us. So the 2 tools that we'll look at are going to be values and tone today in this section. And we'll look at that first one of values first. So I'll give a couple examples on this in a moment, but really values are the guiding principles of how your business operates. So this is how you're going to show up day in and day out in your business, whether it be in your marketing or in your actual delivery of products and services or in your customer service. This is how you're going to show up. Values aren't just a couple words you put on the about page of your website and you walk away. This is how people should expect to experience doing business with you. So this graphic has, some examples of values words, but there are really quite a few options out there, and there will be a resource on that landing page link that I gave you so that you can help work out what yours are. Now, here's a couple of examples of how this might come across. So I'm going to pull examples from, I think, always from Facebook, just because that was a place to get them from, just to get us rooted in the idea of assessing what a value system might be for a company that's marketing to us And hopefully that helps you translate it into how your values are coming across. So here's this first one from Rolls-Royce. I like Rolls-Royce examples because I know they're not marketing to me. So I always like to look at what they're saying when they're marketing to somebody else. And in here, they're saying the finest cuisine is presented in the grandest of settings, adding the finishing touch to every Rolls-Royce experience. So I look at that. Now look at these images, these 3 beautiful curated images that they've got here. The word that comes to my mind is luxury. And the question would be, what word comes to your mind? Now, whatever word came to your mind, that is part of now what you understand about this brand. You're going to add that to all the information you've had before. And this is your new understanding of what Rolls-Royce means to you. And in the future, you're going to expect consistency. You're going to expect more evidence to back up these words that you're putting to this brand. Now, to show you what a different example might look like here, here's a totally different business, the Catholic company. Good morning, read today's hashtag morning offering email, got a link to the morning offering. Okay, then we have this graphic. You can probably read that morning offering in a few seconds. You can react to it really quickly. There's a word in the morning offering that also jumps to mind when I think of the word that strikes me as a value for this business, and that word is faith. Now, what word comes to mind for you? Well, whatever that word is, that's part of what you understand about the package that they're creating here, the brand package. That's the value that you're ascribing to that company. And you're going to expect more of the same thing from the Catholic company in this case in the future. So you can start to see that values really put a context to the language that you're going to use moving forward. And it's important we know that before we start talking about some of these more particular details that we'll look at later. Another option that you have, another tool that you have is tone of voice. And this is a cousin of values, but it's not the same thing. It's how your voice sounds, and it could be written, it could be auditory, but it's the idea of your style of communicating to the audience. And again, if this is an area that you want to explore more, I have a resource for this on that landing page that you can check out. This graphic here has some tone words as an example, but there's so many shades of tone, and it gets really interesting when you can combine multiple shades to see how that might sound. So, here's a couple of very different examples to get you thinking. Here we've got NASA. Once launched on Monday, NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite tests will collect 27 gigabytes of data per day, searching the sky. Okay, you get the idea, right? This is very factual. There are a lot of ways to deliver facts, though. You could deliver facts in this way. You could deliver facts for kids. How would that look different? So you get this package of delivering factual information in sort of like a dry, nothing but the facts kind of way. And that is now what people are going to expect from this brand moving forward. Something very different from that is an example I pulled here from Frank's Red Hot. Okay, the description is, I'd be worried too. First person, as if it's a real human talking to you. And then you've got this picture. You, the guy she tells you not to worry about, is red hot, looking all beefy, right? So it's a totally different style. They're making a point here. They're making it personalized. They're putting that first person in there. They're making it funny. And that's going to be something that you start to get used to, and you expect more of that. If you like the way that NASA writes, you're going to look for more of that information. If you like how Frank's Red Hot communicates with you, you're going to be looking for more of what they're putting out there. And that's why tone is so important, because when you have the tone clear for your business, you are pulling in the members of the audience that want that. You're signaling to them, you should pay attention to this. And at the end of the day, they'll potentially have more loyalty to you later. Now, we're going to move on into more specific topics in just a moment here. I just want to start by saying power comes in all kinds of packages. We're going to talk a lot about taking power in your marketing and sales today, but you really do have to start by choosing the package so that you can create a consistency between all of the things that you're putting out there. Now, let's move into taking initiative with your message. And I will say there's a sort of base idea that I hope is going to be a given for all of us. You do have to plant the seed if you want it to grow. If you have somebody that you want to reach, please go ahead and reach out to them. business owners come up with all different kinds of reasons why they shouldn't reach out to somebody, or they don't feel comfortable to reach out to somebody. But at the end of the day, nobody can say yes if you haven't said anything to them about the thing that you're going to ask. So putting a pitch out there, planting a seed is a critical step in beginning the process of getting somebody to think about your products, your services, or your business in general. But I hope that this is a given. And I'm going to move on from this point to say that how you plant that seed may help it grow more. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about us putting something out there for our business or pitching something. It is about connecting what we offer with the people it will help. And that is the main goal that we all have as business owners. Can we get our target markets not just to be sold to, but to know that our products and services are going to be of use to them, that are going to be helpful to them, that are going to make their lives better in some way. So it's about connecting with them, and how you plant whatever seed you're planting may help it grow more. So this is where we're going to look at a nuance around this called buyer motivation. And buyer motivation, we're going to look at this from the standpoint of your target market as a whole. When you are putting out a general marketing message, what are some of the things that are important to the bulk of your target market? Well, that's something you're going to want to start infusing into your marketing language. We're going to get more specific about the sales process with another technique a bit later. So for now, let's look at the whole picture, the whole target market, and what is motivating most of them. Now, there are 7 different buyer motivations that could potentially be a factor here. We've got profit or gain, preventing loss, having a sense of belonging to something or perhaps community, cause affiliation, avoiding pain, pride or prestige, and comfort or pleasure. Now, if you're selling business to business, B2B, you probably are more likely to see buyer motivations in the profit or gain area, maybe preventing loss. Also, cause affiliation can be a big one, because ultimately that business is also perhaps connecting with their audience through a certain cause. So if they're working with other businesses that are doing the same thing, that can be something that attracts them to one business over another. So those are more likely factors for that group, although you may find that you are getting a mix of that even in your own audience. Now, if you're selling business to consumer, B2C, it really could be any combination of these factors. And it gets really interesting when it looks like a couple that don't seem to go together. Like if you decide, okay, my audience really wants profit or gain and pride or prestige. All right, well, how do you merge those things together? How can you address both of those things in your marketing to make sure that they're ultimately getting the information that they need from you, and know that you're serving all of their objectives at the same time? So this is something it's worth stopping down on this. If you look at, through any of those ways that you're looking to market, whether it be the digital advertising, the networking, all of those things that we were looking at earlier, well, when you're talking to people through those different strategies, what is it that you need to say that's going to help them really hone in on the fact that your product or service is categorically going to be helpful to them? So if you can do that, it helps to break it down by different target markets. And here's one pager that you can, it's really a simple exercise to do. Just look at each target market and say, I will make your life better by, and put a statement that reflects back on one of those buyer motivations or more. If there's more than one buyer motivation that's motivating that target market, come up with a way to really describe that in a simple sentence that you can then start to infuse your larger marketing message into. Now, I will say, just to root this in what's happening for your businesses, for you, which buyer motivation most applies for you? And maybe there's more than one here. So I've written all of them up on the screen. If you're on here with me live, go ahead into the chat and feel free to comment so that everybody can see it with whichever buyer motivation feels most relevant for you. If you have multiple target markets, maybe focus in right now on like the main target market you're trying to reach, or really a profitable primary target market that you have. And that way you're able to focus in a little bit more and not have to try to balance too many things in your brain. The goal here is just to get into this exercise of identifying a buyer motivation for your group that could be relevant. Iris is saying comfort or pleasure. Marcos is saying belonging. Awesome. So we've got those two straight away. And by the way, we're not even looking for trends here. Whatever feels right to you is right for your business. Joe and Roxanne are saying profit or gain. So we've got a couple profit or gains now. Not to say that needs to be a trend. It's just about looking at what you need for your business. Sarah also profit or gain. Excellent. Tina DeSoto has two, pleasure and belonging. Awesome. A bit of a combination of some of the ones that we've heard. Let's see, who else do we have here and what are you thinking for your business? So, and again, this is about your business and maybe just one specific target market of it. It's not about saying the thing that, feels like it's the most common answer, all the better if it's a different answer than the other ones that you've been seeing. So far, it looks like profit and gain have been the most common, but we've had a bit of a smattering of everything here. And I find that really interesting and really helpful, right? So if you can start to root yourself in knowing that this is the buyer motivation that's going to be most important to your target market, you can start dropping that type of language and really thinking about how to tap into that in your marketing messages wherever you're marketing. How is it that your product or service will help them with this thing? And if you know that, you can speak to it and get their attention. Now, we're going to go another level of detail here, powerful language. And look, you could spend a whole day talking about power language. If this is something that you find is interesting to you, this is just to sort of get your appetite going so that you can look up a lot more information about power language and really start to root yourself in strong words and weaker words. Let's look at this though, because power language is ultimately about nuances and strength in how you deliver what you're delivering. Again, we want to embed that in the package, the brand, the tone, the values, but can you then make strong word choices within that? And I'm going to talk through a few different examples of power words and relatively corresponding weak words so you can start to get a sense of this. Now, some examples of power words in marketing would be words like result, because you're now explaining to somebody it's not just about the effort, it's about here's what you're going to get. This is what you can expect from me. The word you is strong. It's saying, I'm putting this in your perspective. This is about what you are going to experience, not what I'm going to experience, you. Advantage is another word here. So advantage is really showing them what another aspect of result, why it's better to go with this approach, what they are going to experience. Avoid has a similar approach, right? Because you're saying, here's what you're not going to get. The thing that you didn't want to get, that's what you're not going to get. We're rooting this in the experience they're going to have. Now, only is a power word when used in the context of rarity or scarcity, getting somebody to move quickly on something because it's not going to be there forever. It's not going to be plentiful forever. Now, if we kind of move down here, we've got because. Backing up what this result is going to be and why that's important for them will help root them in why they should pursue it. Agree is another important one. Some people actually, like speakers, for example, might look for people to nod their heads, so they're physically showing agreement. Some people will look for a yes. This is one style of sales. Not every style of sales uses that, but this idea of agreement is one that can be really powerful in the sales process. Proven. Again, it's not about guessing. Here's how this is going to help you, right? This is what the result and your experience are going to be. So you can start to see why words like this will lead you into stronger language. And what are some of the things we know about that? Well, it's going to spark imagination. It's going to help the audience see what it's really going to look like for them, what their experience is really going to be. Helps encourage trust with your business. You're going to help me get there. May create scarcity. Oh, okay, I better act now because it's not going to be there forever. And it can emphasize value. Again, this is about showing them how you're going to make their life better. Let's look at some examples of weak words. And if you put this side by side with the power words, some of these map directly. The word try. Well, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? It doesn't feel like a bold claim to make. the word I as the seller, how do I benefit? Well, that doesn't really matter to the audience. The audience wants to know how you're going to make their life better. So putting the word you instead of I as much as possible tends to be a stronger choice. Words like sort of and almost. Is it there or is it not there? Can you make a bolder claim than this for your audience to latch onto? A word like just, there's more than one context for the word just. If you're using just like the word only to create scarcity, then that can be powerful. But if you're using just to qualify your words, if you're using just to soften or to take a step back, which is something that I have to look out for quite a lot, then you're using a weaker form of that word and you have to be careful with it. In my opinion, now sometimes there's a legal reason for using this, but when there's not, in my opinion, is not really giving them a rooted, here's what your result is going to be, or here's exactly why it's going to be. It's softening it. I'm going to come back to help me in just a moment. Let's say think. Think is basically the same idea as in my opinion there. Help me though. Help me can be a strong claim, but it is a somewhat desperate claim because at the end of the day, it's about how you're making your audience's life better. And your business is going to be more sustainable if over time they can see how your product or service is helping them. If it's all about helping me, helping whoever you are in your business as the business owner, it's not something that they'll want to support forever. They might jump in and support you as a donation once or support you to help get you off the ground once, but is that something they're going to want to be backing up all the time if they don't see improvement in their own life? So you have to be really careful about making a claim about how they are going to help you in your business. So when it comes to those weak words, you can start to see some trends there. They deprioritize your listener. They put the focus more on you as the seller. They show uncertainty. Maybe you don't feel like you can make a bold claim, and so you're saying this instead. What does that mean for them? It also may reduce value for their product or service that they think they're going to receive. So you have to be careful with these power words and weak words. And again, you can embed all of this into the tone and the values that you've decided are the package for your business. You can embed all of this into the buyer motivation. And this is just stronger word choices that help you get those messages across the line. But I want to put even one more strange nuance onto it here by talking about making strong calls to action. And this is more in the context of the fact that there are different personality types in the buying process. We're going to look at the 4 personality types in just a moment. They're all convinced by something different. And if you are aware of that, you can plan for it more accordingly. Now, like I said, there are 4 buyer personas, or what we would call social styles, that you can consider here. And before I put this up on the screen, I just want to say this, for me, was one of the most confidence building things I ever learned in the marketing and sales process for my own business, because I found that there were some people I clicked with more, and there were some people I clicked with less. And I was beating my head against the wall, trying to get some of those people I click with less to close the deal with me. And as I really started to unpack these buyer personas, I realized, you know what? I may actually be better suited for, my products and services may be better suited for certain styles of people. And it made me reevaluate, and it helped me get control back in my sales process to say, who is it that I actually want to reach? Who do I have the most success with? And do I want to reach more of those people, or do I want to start improving some aspect of what I'm doing to reach the other people that I'm not really as suited to? Well, let's think about that in the context of your business. So there are 4 different social styles: analytical, driver, amiable, and expressive. And this chart starts to show you some of the things that those different groups represent. So the analyticals, they're data driven, they're more controlled, they have a process, they're organized, they want data, they want facts, and then they want time with it to evaluate it through their own process so that they can make a decision. This is the opposite of the expressive on the bottom right. The expressive is a more emotionally driven buyer. They're going to think big picture. They may make impulsive decisions. And if you can tap into that creativity, you may get a quick answer from them. Now, the driver has a similarity with the expressive in the sense that they also might make a quick decision, but they're motivated by something very different. They are looking to win. There's often a competition that's driving the driver. It could be competitive against you as a seller. It could be competitive against their competitors. It could be competitive against themselves. They want to be better than they were yesterday. So they're looking for language that will show them that you're tapping into that this will help them be the best that they can be. Results-oriented thinking, that's the kind of thing that they're looking for here. And they would be the opposite of the amiable. They're looking to make friends in the buyer process. They would be happy to make you, the seller, as a friend during the buying process. So they're looking for something cooperative and supportive. They're not looking to get butt heads or be in a conflicting situation. And you can start to see, just by breaking those down, how wildly different all of those groups are and how you start tapping into them. Now, when you're marketing as a whole, you don't always know specifically who you're talking to. So a lot of times we either balance different types of this language across the whole audience, or what may happen is that you tend to do more marketing in your own social style and attract more people within that social style as a result. So you have to be really thoughtful about who it is you want to reach. Once you get into the sales process and you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can usually start to see pretty quickly which of these areas they fall into. And you can decide if you want to start tailoring your language to match what they need. So I do want to raise a question for you here. Before you even think about how to classify somebody else, it helps to know how to classify yourself. So which social style would you say you are? I've written the 4 up here. It'll be interesting to see who we have in this group that's on live right now. You may find that you've got more than one. Look for whatever's dominant. Maybe it's cut with something else as well. But which one would you say most resonates to you? Analytical being that data-driven one, driver being more competitive, amiable, looking for more friends in the process, expressive, you're tap into your emotions more in a sales process. Let's see who we have on with us now. So Iris is saying expressive, Joe analytical, Bill analytical and driver, Marcos analytical and amiable, Roxanne analytical. Got a bunch of analyticals here. Tina, driver first, then expressive. We have quite a good range, which means that probably this webinar was marketed in a pretty balanced way overall, because many different people felt comfortable that they were going to get what they needed. Now that you're here, I'm an analytical myself, and you may find that if you're analytical, you're getting more information that feels right to you. I don't spend as much time in the expressive zone. So if that's something that is really important for you, it's not an area of my strength, to be honest. And so you can start to see how all of that relates even to this webinar. And I'm going to go back to that last slide for a moment, as we have a couple people who are looking for that information. But those social styles, if you can start to classify who you are in the process, you may find that that's what you're leaning into in your own marketing and sales process. And the question is that attracting the right people for you? Or do you want to lean into another group? And if so, you might have to put a little bit of effort into using the language that it would take to work with them. I will say, I just love this information because it really did make me think differently about my sales process. And it's also something that I think about now in every message that I put out there. Who am I speaking with? And is that the group that I want to be speaking with? Now that I know better who tends to be more of a successful partner for me in the business process, it has helped me figure out where I want to lean in. And I hope this is something that you can think about going into the next year. It's often something we haven't thought about yet. And so this might be new information for some of you as you think about your marketing going into the year ahead. So I will say, ultimately adaptability is part of your strength. And the better you get to know that chart, the better you get to know the 4 different social styles, you will find that you're more easily able to recognize who's standing in front of you and which one they represent, and how to start changing your language on the fly to adapt to it. Now, I'm going to give you one more thing. I know we're covering a lot of ground in just a little bit of information, but this is really to get you thinking about what you want to look up more and what you want to work on more for your business. So we're going to talk about proving your worth, because you know what, no matter which social style you're talking to, every single one of them needs some kind of validation. As consumers, we want to know we're making a good choice before we make it, before we finally buy the product or service that we buy. So it's really important as business owners or business marketers that you not hide from your leverage. If you have something great you can say about your business that would help somebody understand the strength of your reputation, the strength of the quality of your products or services, you really do need to find ways to communicate to that, which can be at odds with so many times business owners say to me, I want to be humble. I don't want to toot my own horn all the time. Okay, you can find ways to deliver this information in a way that doesn't sound like that, in a way that does sound humble, in a way that thanks other people for being part of your journey. So what we're looking to do here is find some different angles to share the social proof around your business, to share what makes your business seem like it has a strong reputation, that you can leverage that in all the messages that you put out there. And I'm going to put this, for me, this is really like a one pager. Again, it's a resource that you can use to think about what can you say about your business right now? Can you talk about the number of employees? If you've got a bunch of employees, maybe that suggests that you've got a strong business. Can you talk about the number of years you've been in business? Can you talk about the number of clients, or skipping over one there, number of projects? Maybe you don't have a large volume of clients, but they keep coming back for more work. That's something to say. Now I'll go back to the followers, visitors, engagement stats. Some different marketing methods we use show that automatically. Some don't, but this is something that you can talk about if you want to. You can celebrate milestones as you want to. Now, if we go back down, awards, number of awards, type of awards, also speaking gigs and content published, they're all tapping into the idea that some other group out there thought that you were valid. And so they wanted to honor you. They wanted to recognize you. They wanted to boost your voice. Charities you support. Not only are you saying, we have this affiliation, but you're saying my business is doing well enough to be able to support this charity. Testimonials and referrals. This might be the most obvious one that we think about when we think about social proof, having people actually talk about your business and sharing what they said. But we've got one more here, community partners, talking about the different businesses or influencers that you partner with in your community. Again, it just shows that you must be good if that business is interested in connecting with you. And so these are all some different examples of things that show the strength of your reputation. And the question just becomes, which of those things can you say about your business now? And which ones do you want to work towards in the future? Okay, I know that I just blasted so much different information at you. And this is a great time to see what questions you have, if there's anything that you want to dial into a bit further for your business. So we talked about setting the voice of your brand, taking initiative with your message, using powerful language, making strong calls to action through personality types, and proving your worth. If you do have any questions, feel free to get those in if you're on with me live here. For those who aren't, here's a reminder of that link that I had put in the chat earlier. That's the top link that has additional resources. The only thing it doesn't have is the replay, which is being generated by Kelly and Maureen. And then, of course, if you have a question that you didn't get to ask here in this last few minutes, I put my email address up on the screen in case you do want to get that question answered. But I do encourage you as well to check in with Kelly and his team at CSU Bakersfield, SBDC, so that you can actually get a consultation about whatever question that you have. So I'm going to turn this one back over and open this one back up to Kelly. Make sure that we're covering any questions that do come in as we go.
Well, you're quite thorough, and that was really fascinating.
Right?
Information. I love that stuff.
I find psychology interesting anyway, but I think in the context of marketing and sales, which is often something that we feel really vulnerable. A lot of business owners feel really vulnerable about those areas of their business and not comfortable. So these are some things that you can do to just start sort of boosting yourself up a bit and finding what your strengths are.
Mm-hmm. And it also kind of reminds me that demographics are very popular, but psychographics are not nearly as studied and taken into perspective as the former.
Absolutely. Where the psychology, where the personality type part was really interesting to me was, I found out that information right around the time that I was noticing that I was having a really hard time closing a few big clients. And I realized they were all 100% drivers or 100% expressives. And so I thought, okay, there's something that I'm not doing for that group. But then I really sat with that and I said, okay, are those the clients I want? The 100% of those groups? And I had to really ask some new questions of myself. And I think that puts you back in control of your own marketing and sales process to say, okay, do I want this group? And if so, how do I reach them?
Mm-hmm. Well, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us again, Melissa. It's great to have you back on.
Thank you for having me.
Look forward to seeing you back in 2023.
Absolutely.
As we wind 2022 back. We'll be back next week. I guess I should reshare that, huh? I have a slide here.
I can stop this share.
And pull this one up and just remind you, we'll be back next week for number 254. Disregard what that says. And our special guest will be Bob Meadows from the city of Shafter, and he'll be talking about networking and really networking going back into 2023 after it being really a activity that a lot of people did not participate much in the last couple of years. Is really going to be an interesting dynamic. It's so much more, as Bob will tell us next week, than working the room. It'll be about those relationships and those intimate relationships that you can form with individuals that you meet. So looking forward to having Bob here. Again, Melissa, fantastic stuff. Great to have you. We'll be back next week. Webinar Wednesday returns again. See you all next week, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.